Chapter 5. Claire woke to a dull, gray morning that seeped through the thin curtains of her bedroom. Snow had fallen some time after midnight, and the sky beyond her window looked washed out as if the sun had given up trying to shine. She rolled out of bed, shivering when her feet touched the old, cold floorboards. Once upon a time, she had planned to buy rugs, fix the sagging windows, and turn this place into a real home for both of them. Money, of course, had other ideas. The more bills arrived, the further those dreams drifted. It had been a while since she'd peed in peace, but after a restless night and Kyle's bitching, she craved 5 minutes alone. She settled onto the toilet, phone in hand, and did her best to just watch funny cat videos. Kyle's text loomed at the top, each more pitiable than the last. She snorted under her breath, texting back, "We'll talk later, promise." Suddenly, the bathroom door, which had been left only slightly ajar, creaked. Claire glanced up. The hallway lights were off, leaving only a slice of amber glow from the living room lamp. In that slice of dim light, Autumn's wheelchair glided into view. Slowly. Silently. She froze mid-text. Hey?" she called. "I'll be out in a sec." She expected an answer or a wave, but Autumn simply rolled past the completely open door, drifting with an unnerving smoothness despite Autumn having her hands in her lap. Her eyes were wide, and her lips were parted in an unblinking, gleeful smile. It was as though invisible hands pushed her chair along. She disappeared down the hallway, the sound of wheels squeaking fading behind her. Claire let out an incredulous breath. She pressed her palm to her chest. From somewhere in the living room, she thought she heard a faint giggle and the tippy-tapping of fingers on a speech assistance device, but the device didn't say anything. Then she wrapped up what her father referred to as business time, washed her hands, and eased into the living room where morning light revealed the cluttered aftermath of her frustration. A soft clack-clack from the other side of the living room made her pause. Her friend was hunched over the battered coffee table, her speech assistance device perched on her lap. The device's mechanical keys responded to her quick fingers, and the robotic voice emanating from its tinny speaker said, "Good morning. Are you okay?" Claire offered a tired smile. "I should ask you the same. Sorry again about yesterday." She pointed to the jumble on the floor. Autumn blinked a few times, purple hair draping down her cheeks. Her face, still pale and fragile, held a flicker of concern. She typed, "You never have to apologize for being angry. I'm just worried about you. I was hoping you wouldn't hear." She picked up a cheap ballpoint pen from the floor, tossing it onto the table. "Anyway, I guess we keep going, right?" Autumn nodded slowly. From the hallway, Don Roberto left out a mournful meow. For a moment, Claire thought she saw the cat hesitate to enter the living room, staring wide-eyed at a patch of shadow near the wall. Then he slunk away, tail low. Her nerves tightened, and she felt a weight on her chest. She ambled into the kitchen, rummaging through cupboards, refried beans, ramen packets, a single can of diced tomatoes. Hardly a feast. She spied the can of soup from last night, half forgotten on the counter, next to a grocery bag that still needed unpacking. Another wave of frustration tensed her shoulders. She needed to do better. She glanced at the window, noticing a dusting of frost along the edges. Outside, a crow perched on the fence, staring straight at her. The second she made eye contact, it flapped off, cawing into the pale morning. Tamping down the odd sense of being watched, Claire fetched a pair of eggs from the fridge. She began cracking them into a pan. Her stomach lurched at the memory of how yesterday had gone. The morning's routine was calmer. She felt too emotionally exhausted for anger. This morning's routine was calmer. She felt too emotionally exhausted for anger. The pain well was dry. She returned to the living room to coax Autumn into eating the small meal. The wheelchair was angled near the couch. Autumn rested the tattered Arcana Hermetica on her knees. Claire cocked her head. "Enjoying your book?" Autumn typed quickly. "Interesting. Real or fake, I like it." Then a more direct line. "Spirit needs help, too." Her brow rose. "Yeah? Not sure how helpful a bunch of old rituals might be." Autumn's lip curved in the faintest smile. She typed, "I used to pray in a closet when Dad did bad things. Witchy stuff, too. Trying everything." Her face darkened, a memory flickering behind her eyes. Claire knew bits and pieces about Autumn's past, like being pimped out by a so-called caretaker, nights in freezing shelters, her doing what she needed to survive. The details were horrifying, but they rarely discussed them in depth. Autumn always seemed reluctant to dwell. Claire swallowed. I guess it can't hurt, right? She gently set a plate with scrambled eggs on the table. Autumn nodded and complied, scooping a small portion into her mouth, pausing after each bite. Claire felt relieved that no immediate nausea surfaced. A small relief. While her purple-haired companion ate, she let her attention go elsewhere. Her gaze drifted towards the old grimoire splayed open on the table, Arcana Hermetica. One phrase caught her eye. Watchers at the threshold, protectors of the silent soul. She couldn't say why it pinched her chest so sharply, but something in those archaic words felt closer to home than she liked. She skimmed a line about a communion for the devout and the bound, half obscured by a blot of ink. Something about flesh, though the text was too smeared to parse. A faint chill prickled along her arms, as though the page itself exhausted a hush into the room. She snapped the book shut before she could dwell on it. Probably just superstitious nonsense, she told herself. Autumn needed real solutions, not cryptic talk of watchers. Still, that phrase, silent soul, wouldn't leave her mind. Claire forced a swallow, turning her attention to Autumn, who was chewing meticulously, determined not to lose another meal. Outside, a breeze rattled the window, and she found her own shoulders tensing. Once Autumn finished her breakfast, Claire wheeled her to the bedroom so she could rest. Claire perched on the edge of the bed, fluffing pillows and adjusting the covers around her friend's leg. "Anything else you need?" she asked while smoothing the blanket at the lower end of the bed. "We can talk about my old caretaker. You said you wanted to learn everything so you can do better." Claire's heart squeezed. They had tiptoed around these details. "If you're ready, sure." Her voice hushed. Slowly, haltingly, Autumn typed a short account of living with a woman named Darla, who insisted Autumn call her mom, though there was no genuine parental bond. Darla had severe borderline personality disorder. They had lived with Darla's parents on and off. Her parents finally kicked them both out for good. It started when the state notified Darla that she wouldn't be getting her biological kids back. Darla suspected her parents were to blame. She found retribution by taking a crowbar to her parents' old SUV. So, she and Autumn were homeless again, living in a stuff-full Subaru. Many of Darla's friends cut ties with her over the decision to take care of Autumn, especially when her biological kids had already been taken and she couldn't hold down a job. It would be a few months in the Subaru, then she would get a job in an apartment for a few months, then blow up and have an episode. Sometimes she encouraged Autumn to exchange her body so they could get a place to stay for a night or two. Autumn began having issues with falling over, fainting, and getting sick often and for extended periods. "I had no phone, no way to ask for help," the device continued in its monotone voice. "Hell, once I OD'd and she just left me there. I woke up feeling like I died and came back. She was mad at me, even though she was using too. Darla was keeping my social security checks the whole time. Then she said I was too much work, so she left me on the street under a bridge and drove off with her boyfriend of the week." Claire's stomach twisted. She reached out, clasping Autumn's trembling hand. "God, I'm so sorry you went through that," she whispered. She fought the urge to cry, not wanting to overshadow Autumn's revelations with her own tears. "I had no idea it was that bad." Autumn typed. "That's normal for me. It wasn't nearly as bad as when I was a kid," then paused. "You're the first person who tried to get me help. Real help. But maybe I don't deserve it. I did bad things, Claire." Claire inhaled sharply. "Don't ever say that. You did what you had to do, whatever it was." Her voice cracked. "We'll figure it out. If I have to call every clinic in the state or out of state, I'll do it. Maybe some of this witchy stuff can keep your spirits up meanwhile. You're strong and good, and I'm proud of you, Autumn." She put her hand on the back of Autumn's head and gave her a kiss on the forehead. "We keep trying, right?" Autumn just nodded, eyes glassy with old pain. The hush that followed felt thick, like the house itself was witnessing a confession. Claire rubbed her friend's arm gently. A click from the living room drew her attention, perhaps the phone or a shifting box. Tense, she listened, but no further noise came. You rest. I'll be around. Unfortunately, she was only halfway down the hallway when she heard the chair careening toward the bathroom. She found Autumn slumped at the toilet, trembling arms braced against the porcelain. A fresh wave of vomit splattered across the bowl. Her face shone with sweat, tears pooling around the corners of her eyes. Claire gently laid a hand on her friend's back. Autumn gagged again, her body tensing, but nothing emerged. Claire instinctively reached around, steadying her, half-cradling her weight. The exhaustion radiating from Autumn's thin frame felt like a raw reminder of how fragile she had become. Her friend's suffering was laid bare, a monument to Claire's failure and insufficiency. You're okay, Claire said softly. I got you. She glanced around for something to anchor her mind. Spare towels, the half-empty medical kit, anything. Her heart still hammered against her ribs. Calm down. Just be here for her and do what you can. She patted Autumn's shoulder, waiting for the retching to subside. When it finally passed, she slumped against her caregiver, breathing in ragged, shallow bursts. Claire reached for the speech assistance device on the shelf and slid it closer. Autumn's trembling fingers fumbled over a few keys. This keeps happening. Sorry. Claire swallowed. It's not your fault, she said, her voice firm. She rinsed the washcloth again, dabbing the corners of Autumn's mouth. The guilt and pity churned in her gut, recalling Autumn's earlier admission. Maybe I don't deserve help. A flicker of anger replaced the pity, anger at a world that refused to help, at a system that allowed needless suffering. She eased Autumn back into the wheelchair and guided her to the bedroom. The house felt colder than usual, a draft coiling at the edges of every door. She flicked on the overhead light, but it only gave a faint, wavering shine that filled the room with a lifeless white glow. Once Autumn was settled under blankets, Claire lingered near the window, noticing the crow from earlier perched on the telephone wire. Or maybe it was another crow, but it still looked in her direction, that same unwavering stare. She tensed, trying to shrug off the sense of being watched. All right, she said, turning back to her friend with a forced smile. Let's keep you warm, and maybe see how your stomach does in an hour or two. I'll reheat that soup if you can face it. She tried for a calm, soothing voice, though the leftover sadness still settled in her bloodstream. Autumn signed, thanks. Then a second line. I'm so tired of this. Claire inhaled. I'm sorry, she murmured, brushing a stray strand of purple hair from Autumn's cheek and leaving her hand resting there for a moment. But we'll figure something out. She wanted to echo the reassurance a million times until it felt real. Instead, she quietly left Autumn to rest and padded into the living room. She paused at the battered coffee table, where Arcana Hermetica lay half open, its old parchment pages tempting her curiosity. Part of her wanted to slam it shut, stash it away. Another part of her wanted to pretend this occult stuff could fix everything. She reopened the book and found a legible section, reading aloud. In the turning of the firmament and the crossing of invisible gates, the traveler upon this path shall meet those who stand as sentinels betwixt mortal spirit and the veiled plains. These watchers, once called the augurs of the threshold, bear neither kindness nor mercy, yet guard the secret right which binds unspoken souls into the cosmic tide. Be warned that in offering thy devotion, thou yieldest a measure of thy living essence. Through the hidden cord that ties the bound to the guide, a communion forms, merging the lesser breath with the might of the unmanifest. The texts speak of a union beyond flesh, where the devout may taste the aura of their charge, and in so tasting, forge a single curtain in the labyrinth of stars. This alchemy is no trifling ritual of candles and script. It demands the utmost desire to preserve and to dominate in equal measure. Many have misstepped, consumed by the very forces they sought to tame. Let the sign of binding be inscribed, though the hand shake with tremor. Let the circle be sown with salt or ash, though the foot ache upon the threshold. Only then may the silent soul find respite beneath the watcher's gaze, and only then might mortal devotion ascend to become something stranger, both a sacrament and a surrender. Translated by unknown hand, excerpt from the incomplete folio labeled Arcana Hermetica, Section 7, The Guardians at the Gate. Sufficiently creepy, she murmured. The watchers, she thought, augurs of the threshold, no kindness or mercy. The lines bounced around her mind, half lost in archaic phrasing. She rubbed a hand over her face, cursing her own superstitious instincts. She was a caregiver, not some Victorian occultist, but if it gave Autumn even a shred of comfort, maybe it was worth being open-minded. She distracted herself by tidying the loose items from last night's meltdown. The phone bill would be paid late. Whatever. Kyle was, thankfully, MIA, and certainly sulking over texts, and Autumn was retching her guts out with no solution in sight. Of course she felt like a fool for being miserable, especially for having what she saw as no good excuse for being so goddamn miserable. But we'll keep going. She repeated the thought to herself, half prayer, half stubborn mantra. Her gaze drifted back to the book swirling sigils, heart pounding at the memory of the lines referencing a union beyond flesh. Possibly just high-flown metaphor. Possibly. Her phone buzzed from the couch, a single beep. She tensed as 5 rapid-fire messages from Kyle flashed across the screen. She barked a short laugh, humorless and sharp. She couldn't help it. She kept laughing for a solid and uncontrollable 5 minutes while alone in that dark living room. Then she stopped laughing, the immediate silence bringing a scraping noise from the hallway again, and her nerves flared. She stepped out, forcing her mind not to conjure anything more sinister. Autumn was still in the bedroom, eyes closed, perhaps dozing. No other sign of movement. The hush pressed in, thick as a tomb. She swallowed, focusing on her own footsteps to ground herself. When she returned to the living room, a faint pang of dread gnawed at her stomach, but she forced it down. Work to be done. Best to focus on that never-ending to-do list. A few minutes later, the phone chimed again, rattling on the kitchen counter. She glanced at the screen and froze. Dad. The text read, "They will watch you in your sorrow. There is no escape unless you submit." She felt a returning cold shiver race down her spine. She didn't reply. Instead, she powered off the phone, forcing herself to take a steadying breath before carrying Autumn's meds to the bedroom. Afterward, she noticed something on the doorstep outside. A single black feather, stiff and pointed. Claire stared at it through the window. Claire nearly tripped over a box of random junk when the doorbell rang. She considered ignoring it, but then she heard Kyle's muffled, "Claire, I know you're in there." She groaned. Now she was certain she'd like to ignore the knock. Finally, she opened the door, letting a gust of chilly air rush in. "Why haven't you been answering me?" "I've been busy." "We're never alone anymore," he said quietly. "We never do anything, never, have time for us. It's messing with me, all of it." She felt a flare of disdain. "It's not like you want to do anything interesting when we are together. All we do is fight, and it's been how long since you even kissed me? I don't have the mental space to coddle you on top of everything else. Your work, and I already have enough work to do." He frowned, shoulders tensing. "I'm not asking to be coddled. Do you have any clue how I feel when I see you fuss over her all day, but you barely say hi to me?" "You aren't pleasant to be around. All you do is complain and play video games." He shot back. "I get nothing from you." She cut him off, stepping closer, voice dangerously low. "You say that, but you have seen what my day is like. Have you tried to help? I have 0 resources left. I'm not your mother. I'm your girlfriend. For now, at least." He looked around as if searching for an ally. "You realize she has no one else, right? She can't just hop off to a spa weekend to free me up for date night. Or off to Aspen like your family. She's stuck here, in pain." Kyle's cheeks flushed. "That's not fair. You ignore my calls, dodge my texts, and I'm supposed to be perfect? You need to just let this stuff go. You fixated on everything and are totally reactionary. Your life doesn't need to be a mess. You let it be a mess. I have no problem with paying my bills. You're the one who's letting yourself fail at life." She looked off to a corner in the room and laughed loudly. "Get out of here. We'll talk more about this another time." He glared, looking wounded. "Bye." Then yanked open the door and stormed out. A gust of wind blew a stack of papers into the air. Claire stood rooted to the spot, breathing hard. The hush settled around her again, oppressive and draining.